1 week season.
Hey, and welcome in OWS fam. So glad you are with us. We are back in the DFS lab presented by 1 week season. As always, this show purpose build a DraftKings lineup and use it to look at the upcoming slate. In this case, we are looking at week 9. It's obviously only Tuesday around, a little afternoon when you'll be watching this Eastern time. So certainly very early, much to change, but it's always fun to get an early look. And certainly fun to talk about it with Hilow as I welcome him up. I'm your host, Cheeseman, as always. Hilow, what's up, dude? I know that I saw your post on X. I know that it was another very eventful weekend for you in terms of DFS.
Yeah, man. Another sweat. So that's 4 legitimate sweats in the last 5 weeks. Last week sucked. I had like all of the Juju Smith-Schuster. So that was not
right.
my sweat,
Yeah,
but
week 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So 4 out of the last 5 weeks, I've had a team in position to ship a major. That has gone back and forth like ping pong between the SPY and the Millie. And this past week was like the closest that sweat has come. I was in like 80th entering the afternoon, and I had Kareem Hunt and Denver D still to go. And I noticed that I was duped twice. So there were 2 rosters that had my exact roster. And I figured that because Kareem Hunt plus Denver D and the rest of the roster was maximum salary, it was $50K. I figured that was what those other 2 rosters had. So I pivoted from Kareem Hunt to DeAndre Swift, who was just 100 less than Hunt. That pivot ended up being what I needed to do. Obviously, the theoretics behind it, like I had to do it. But Swift ended up almost doubling Kareem Hunt, which was extremely nerve-wracking to be like for the first half, because Swift had like no catches, 31 rushing yards in the first half, and Kareem Hunt scored on the first drive. I was like, oh, great. Here we go.
Yeah.
But then Swift in the beginning of the fourth quarter rips off that 56-yard touchdown to get him to like 97, 98 yards and a score. I was like, okay, he'll get
so
the
at
bonus.
That point, then you probably jumped right in the standings when that happened.
Yeah, I was up to 4th at that point.
Oh man.
So yeah, and then also I had Cedric Tillman as part of my Jameis Winston double, and his stat correction cost me an extra 3 points because he had 100 yards with 2 receiving touchdowns. They stat corrected him to 99 yards. So that lost me 3 points too. I was like, damn it. But yeah, so I was in 4th, and it was like 2 minutes to go in the Carolina Broncos game. Carolina had the ball. They ended up scoring with 18 seconds left to remove 4 points from my defense. And then DeAndre Swift, obviously the Bears had the 2 final drives where they get to the 1-yard line, and they don't have Swift in on either of them. So I needed like the Broncos to not get scored on because I was the only one with the Broncos defense up there in the top 10. And I needed Swift to like get one of those goal line touchdowns to ship, and it didn't happen. But yeah, man, I mean, we've been really close this year. 4 legit sweats in the last 5 weeks. So yeah, the Broncos getting scored on with 18 seconds left and Swift not getting one of those goal line carries. That was the difference between $100,000 and $4,000, which I won. I ended up in like 7th place, I think, in the SPY. So it wasn't all for naught. I hit an 8-legger on Underdog for like 2,600, and then I hit again another one last night for 1,700, a 5-legger. So it was a good weekend.
Yeah, man.
It was like a good $9,000 weekend, but it just, man, it could have been so much bigger.
Dude, yeah. Hopefully with 10 weeks to go, I think we got about 10 weeks left, 10 regular season weeks left. Dude, hopefully you ship one of these next 10 weeks, dude. And it was a good week at 1 week season too. Obviously, Jameis Winston was a heavy exposure, spot for a lot of people in 1 week season. So it was good to see that as well. But great stuff, Hilow. Let's jump right into week 9. I'll open up DraftKings here, and where do you want to? Let's see. I guess let's start. Let's grab the contest that we normally do, and then we'll start to look at this slate. So,
Yeah, we got the 555 milli this week, so let's go back to that bad boy.
all right. I always have it never pop. I think if the algorithm
It's
is
the
like
algo, yeah.
noticing that like I
Yeah.
never enter that contest, then for me it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we're not gonna let you find this one.
Yeah, it's like right
So
at the top for me because I play it every time it's
yeah,
available.
hey man, I figured they had an algorithm going there, but
Yeah.
now it's confirmed. Okay, cool. So yeah, man. I mean, this is an interesting slate as they all are, of course, but um, we're getting more and more games. It seems where the totals are getting back. I felt for a while we didn't see totals over 50, but now we have 2 games with totals in the 50s, 3 more above 47. Where do you want to start in terms of discussing Week 9?
Yeah, I think we have to just kind of start with the macro. Like you mentioned, like there are a lot of high team totals, and then there's the 2 games with the high game totals. But I feel like that's going to trip a lot of people up this week. Um, so starting at the top, we'll just go top to bottom. The Cowboys and the Falcons facing off with a game total of 52.5. The Falcons favored by 2.5. That is solid team totals on each side. 27.5 Vegas applied team total for the Falcons and 25 points for the Cowboys. So we'll file that away. Then we have a Broncos Ravens game where the Ravens are instilled with a team total of 27 points, but they're 9.5 point favorites over the Broncos. We have a Bills and Dolphins game. Another 50-point game total. The Bills are favored by 6.5 points. That leaves them with a game Vegas applied team total of 28.25 to the Dolphins 21.75. Then we have the Saints on the road against the Panthers. There's a lot kind of going on with this game because is Derek Carr coming back? How healthy is Chris Olave? Are they going to make any wide receiver moves through not free agency, but before the trade deadline? So there's a lot going on here. And then with the Panthers also, are they going to move Deontay Johnson? Which I suspect, and I don't think he will play this week regardless. Whether he's moved or not, we have the trade deadline coming up, and it's very clear that he is a clear trade target. So the Saints are 7-point road favorites with another like moderately healthy game total of 43.5 points. Then we have the Bengals and the Raiders. The Bengals team total of 27.25. But they're also 6.5-point favorites at home. Then continuing Chargers and the Browns. Chargers, this game total is a more modest one, 42 points. And the line is Chargers road favorites by 1.5. The Chargers lead the league still in points allowed per game at just 13.0. So some interesting things there because the Browns are a place where we just got done going to for value. So you notice, like, as we talk through the slate, while these game totals and team totals are higher than we've come accustomed to, none really have like jumped off the page just quite yet. And that's kind of the theme of this slate and why we're doing this. Continuing that, we have the Commanders on the road against the Giants with a more modest 43.0 game total. And the Commanders are 3.5-point favorites on the road. Then you got the Patriots and the Titans. This is a kind of a no stay away. But one of the lower game totals, 38 points with the Titans, 3.5-point home favorites. Then we get to the afternoon portion of the slate, and we have a pick'em game between the Bears and the Cardinals. I don't even want to spend too much time on that, so we'll continue. We have a Jaguars and Eagles game, which does not have a line currently, but the Eagles have been the most run-heavy team since their Week 5 bye in the league, and the Jaguars very clearly present a pass funnel matchup. So how are the Eagles going to handle that spot? That is, I think, one of the more interesting spots on the slate. And if the field, it'll kind of determine, like, the field will determine my interest in that spot. If they think that the Eagles are going to come out passing and we see heavy ownership on Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, might be a better spot to bet against. But yeah, that's an interesting one. And then the Jaguars, I think there's no line here because Christian Kirk, it looks like he's done for the year. and there's just a lot of uncertainty with how the Eagles will attack the spot. Continuing, we've got the Packers and the Lions. The Packers hosting the Lions. This is the first outdoor game for Jared Goff this season.
Whoa.
So that is notable. Yeah. Lambeau Field in November is not a good setup for Jared Goff. Obviously, we know we have Jameson Williams, who's going to be out in the spot as well. So that condenses things a little bit for the Lions. But that's a healthier game total of 48.5 points, with the Lions instilled as 3.5 point road favorites. And then the final game of the afternoon is this divisional matchup between the Rams and the Seahawks. The Seahawks have been absolutely being destroyed on the ground over the last 6 weeks. So is this a Kyren Williams game? We know the Rams finally have both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back. And Sean McVay kind of squashed trade rumors around Cooper Kupp. He's like, he's back. We're glad to have him back, and we're going to keep him. So that team should remain intact. And it makes sense because the NFC West has all 4 teams within half a game. So like the Rams are not out of anything yet. So it makes sense that they're not sellers. I mean, I think they want to squeeze one more final push out of this roster that they absolutely like blew up 5 years ago to win the Super Bowl. So yeah, like this slate from a top-down view is more wide open than I think the game totals are really suggesting. So that's going to be our starting point for like discussing this slate.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of use that to get in. I have to apologize also, like my S's, I'm like slurring because I bit my tongue 3 days ago and I have this like gnarly sore on the tip of my tongue. Ooh. It's really hard to talk. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah. I've been there. No. I mean, from how I'm hearing you, you sound good. So maybe it's not sweet. As bad as you think. But yeah, that sucks, dude. I hate that. Yeah, man. The afternoon slate feels like there's going to be some. I mean, one of those where if you're feeling really good after the early games and you're like, man, I'm like in, I'm in the top whatever, 3%. You haven't really seen anything yet because there's going to be certainly some ownership on those afternoon games. But yeah, man, good breakdown. And you're right. It's like when you just glance at these totals, you're like, oh man, great spots to target, but there's more nuance to these, as you said.
Yeah, for sure. So where do we start? Like,
yeah,
that's the question on this slate. And I want to start in a spot where I think is going to go under-owned relative to its upside to develop into like something we had to have. And that's the Lions and the Packers.
Yeah.
So we'll start there. And I think the Packers are a team that like, it's really hard to stack right now because they have so much like weekly uncertainty as far as the pass catchers go. We also have uncertainty with Jordan Love. He picked up an injury again. He left twice in that game.
Yeah.
The second injury was a groin injury, and he wouldn't return from that injury. So Malik Willis finished out the game and actually iced the game for the Packers.
He did.
Yeah, which was pretty cool. Also, I don't know if you saw, Matt LaFleur was asked like, what was the deal with the final like one of the key plays of the game, which was a Malik Willis deep pass down the sideline on a leaker to Jayden Reed. And effectively what he said was like, that play was not in the playbook. We toyed around with it on Tuesday and we shit canned it. We didn't bring it into the active game plan for this week. But Malik Willis was on the sideline who had come in after Jordan Love got hurt. And he's like, hey, remember that play we were talking about? Like, it's open. Let's do it.
I love it.
So basically, yeah, they have the offensive line like moving across the formation in like man gapping, but it was like a play action. So they have down blocking on the offensive line. They bring Malik Willis out onto his right on a bootleg, and they have Jayden Reed, who's slot right, who leaks across the field and does like a curl go down the left sideline. And so Malik Willis like rolls out to the right and then hits Jayden Reed down the sideline for like a 40-yard gain. It was beautiful. But yeah, that play was like Malik Willis just saying like, "Hey, it's open. Let's
I love
do
that.
that."
It's like backyard football. Like, hey, I remember this. Let's just do it. He's open. Like, I'm open. Like, I'm open in the huddle or something. But love
Yeah.
that.
So
Love
yeah,
that.
I think the reporter like asked LaFleur, he's like, "Hey, that final play with Malik, was that a can?" And he's like, "Yeah, very good, man. Like you're learning." He's like praising the reporter. It was kind of funny. Anyway,
Dude, that's great.
but yeah, so let's start with Jordan Love.
All right. Love it is. And yeah, hopefully we'll have to watch. I mean, yeah, you have to watch the reports. Certainly it would change if he was out, but it seems like from the initial scans and stuff, it seemed like it was good news. So he'll probably be good.
Yeah, the MRI came back clean and just revealed a groin strain. I would expect he plays, so we'll build it as if he plays here. And the thing with the Packers is this is a team that we've talked about earlier or throughout the season that kind of is more reactive than proactive when they're talking about like pushing the pace or pass rates or pace of play. Typically, they're going to start the game with a run balanced approach. They're going to be very methodical, trying to march the field. They're going to see what their opponent gives them, and then they're very good at making those adjustments. Against a Lions team that we kind of have a good idea like who they are defensively, we should expect like it might be starting the game with a more pass balanced approach. So that's kind of why Jordan Love sticks out a little bit to me. He's priced up at 7K. We don't expect a ton of ownership. We don't expect a lot of interest in this game environment, but this is probably one of the game environments that has one of the sneakier chances to turn into like something you could not win without this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Could definitely see this being a high scoring game, especially given how tight their division is. It's an important game for both teams.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We talk about the NFC West and all teams within a half a game. The NFC North, all teams are within one game. So and it's like all teams are within 1.5 game. I think it's 1.5.
I guess with the Bears losing, they're 4.
The Bears lost
now.
on the Bears lost on that Hail Mary last play. Yeah. But the NFC North, dude, there's a combined 3 home losses from that division this year. And that division is playing some really, really good football.
It is, it is. It is.
But yeah, anyway. Talking about stacking up Jordan Love. And the biggest question is, who do we do that with? We know the Lions run a lot of man coverage. Let me pull the number on that right now, the updated number. It's thinking the Lions lead the league.
Where do you get this the zone versus man coverage rates? Where do you get those numbers?
I'm using Fantasy Points Data Suite this season.
Nice.
The last 2 years, I used True Media, which is like they are the best in the industry, but it's really, really expensive to gain access to. I was fortunate enough to get access through some of the other places I worked, but that is no longer after I got let go by 33rd team this year, so I don't have access to that. But for those that are like looking for some of this data, Fantasy Points Data does a really good job for the money. It's not expensive. Like for True Media access, it's like legitimately $5 to $10 depending on whether you're a solo entity or a company. Yeah.
Oh my word.
But Fantasy Points Data is like $200. And they come really, really close to True Media for a massive price discount. So would recommend it. That's where I'm pulling this stuff from. So the Lions lead the league in man coverage rate at 43.8% through their 7 games played. They also allow 0.46 fantasy points per drop back from man coverage, which is it's like middling in the league.
Okay.
League average is like 0.41.
Okay.
So they're slightly worse than league average, but right around league average in production allowed per drop back from man coverage. So when you look at the Packers, it's actually Dontavian Wicks that leads the team in fantasy points per route run against man. The problem is he's playing like a shared role in this offense right now with Christian Watson. So is that usable? Can we even use that? I don't know. And last week, it was actually Christian Watson who saw a higher share of that like shared role. he played 52 offensive snaps to the 21 of Dontavian Wicks. So like 74% to 30%. So we can't really count on Dontavian Wicks. So looking at who performs best behind Dontavian Wicks against man coverage, now it's Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. So Dobbs is a guy that kind of is this do-it-all wide receiver on this team. He is very capable. I liken him to Alan Lazard of the Aaron Rodgers days in Green Bay. Very, very predictable. The quarterback can know what to expect from him. He's a good blocker. He does kind of all the behind the scenes things right for this offense. So that's why he's leading the team in offensive snaps of the wide receivers. Yeah. That's why he's typically around the 85% snap rate range. And he's playing pretty well against man coverage this season as well. He has over 10.2 fantasy points in each of his last 3 games. 2 weeks ago against the Texans, put up 94 yards on 8 catches. Last week, put up 72 yards on 3 catches. So I think we go Jayden Reed, Romeo Doubs on this roster. And we capture Jayden Reed to kind of get that access to explosive plays. Because we're going to need that explosive play stuff if Jordan Love is going to put up a game where you couldn't win without.
Yeah, and for Reed, this is the lowest his price has been since week 5 against the Rams. But prior to that, his price had come up because of the couple of 30-point games he's had, but hasn't had a 30-point game in a while.
Yeah, exactly. So he's kind of the per touch upside piece in this offense.
Love it. Absolutely. So you got Love and a couple of pass catchers here. Are you going to go with the bring back from the Lions in this one? Do you feel like you need to?
Yes, I think we need to. And the reason is we want this game to turn, but the way that we're constructing this, we want this game to turn into something that you could not win without. And if you could not win without it, you need it to kind of turn into this back and forth, like Minnesota versus Green Bay game from a few weeks back. You need it to turn into something that you had to have pieces. And in order to do that, you kind of need both sides pushing the game environment. So with that understanding, there's really 2 spots that jump out to me as the explosive plays in this offense. Well, one's an explosive play and the other is a volume play. And that's, of course, Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Both of these guys are priced down-ish relative to where they've been over the last month or so. Amon-Ra St. Brown's at his lowest price since or all season at $7,900. And when you think about how this Packers defense functions, they do a lot of good stuff to mix up coverages, but they run a lot of too high. And against too high, Amon-Ra St. Brown is the guy in this offense. So we're going to put in Amon-Ra St. Brown here and say he is one of the reasons that this game turns into something you kind of had to have.
Love it, dude. Yep. And I, again, love those numbers with his numbers against too high. And you really hope that, Detroit has to actually throw the ball a little bit. It's crazy how Goff's numbers have been down. But again, if, Green Bay is able to score points, if they come out a little more aggressive, then you could see definitely Detroit do the same. So I like that.
Yeah. Now we got to go into salary saver mode.
Yeah.
And you know what? In order to save more salary, we're actually already going to make a pivot on our primary. We're going to go from Romeo Doubs to Tucker Kraft. And that'll save a little bit of salary for us here as well.
All right. Yep. There we go.
Okay. So now we get the tight end position covered through our primary. And we save a little bit of salary here. Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm following along so I see how much I see the build unfolding.
Okay. So you got your 2 running back slots still and about 5K left. I haven't really looked at defense yet this week.
Yeah, that's where we're going next. We're going to go to defense. Because we need to scroll to the bottom
let's see.
Start moving up until we see something viable.
Yeah, I mean it's hard.
There's not a lot to
Carolina,
love at the bottom, to
yeah,
be
Carolina's
honest.
bad. I mean, I don't know. Chicago, like Bears. Caleb Williams looks still raw. Obviously, you wouldn't want to take the Packers
Yeah,
defense
I
here.
think we're gonna start. We're gonna start the Patriots. It feels so gross, but get Patriots against Tennessee.
Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so 5,200 left. And yeah, we haven't talked about running back yet. So
Actually, we're already gonna change that. We're gonna move that to the Chargers at 3,300.
okay, yeah, against old Jameis.
Yeah, so we're gonna go the other way with this team compared to what we did last week. We know they're gonna be dropping back. We said that Jameis had very clear paths to 40 dropbacks last week. Ended up with 41 dropbacks. So that's what we want. We want him to be dropping back a lot. He did not have an interception, but he lost a fumble against the Ravens. But we know Jameis is this gunslinger, so we're going to target that with our defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that.
All right.
So you want to look at running back next, or a couple other, like some value, kind of like receiver flex options? Where you want to go here next? So obviously, running back, you got the studs up there. We already talked about Kyron Williams. The matchup for him is good. But yeah, where do you want to look next?
Yeah, let's go to running back. Running back is tough, man, especially with the salary that we have left over. Let's put in Chase Brown for now.
Okay, so I'm guessing
Chase Brown is kind of taking a larger share of this backfield in Cincinnati, and he gets a matchup against the Raiders that are really struggling to provide pressure on the quarterback in the backfield. So Chase Brown has played 50% of the offensive snaps or more in each of the last 3 games. And that's a stark departure to how he started the season. So taking over a larger share. And as we talked about, what was it? In week 6, so 3 weeks ago, when he played, who did they play in week 6? No, that wasn't it, because the Giants are getting pressure. I think it was in week 4. It was in week 4 against the Panthers, where we said Chase Brown probably has a path to higher volume in that matchup because the Panthers are not generating pressure and Chase Brown is not trusted in pass protection. This Raiders game kind of sets up similar to that. And if you remember, Chase Brown in that spot put up like 23 fantasy points at like 0 ownership. So we're going to pencil Chase Brown in here as a guy that has like high per touch upside.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's early in the week still. So a lot of times, like it's hard to really know where value will emerge at this point in the week. I mean, there's not.
Yeah. And then to our other running back spot, we're going to go cheap as well. Tyrone Tracy has taken over the Giants backfield. His snaps, and this is in the last 2 games with a healthy Devin Singletary. He played 67% of the offensive snaps in week 7 and 57% in week 8. But out-touched Devin Singletary like by a massive margin. I think it was 22-4 last night. But he picked up a concussion and they're on a short week. So I would expect we see Devin Singletary back in as the lead / featured back this week. And that's important because the Giants are probably going to try to do everything they can to keep the ball away from Jayden Daniels and this Washington team. So we'll pencil Devin Singletary in for now to just kind of see how this plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, dude. So yeah, a couple spots left, and 4,400 in salary per piece.
Yeah, so kind of immediately Cedric Tillman comes to mind as a salary saver against our defense, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
man, Tillman just,
we'll go.
it's hard to,
We'll
yeah,
go
hard to get away from him.
Cedric, and then we got 4,500 left. Not a ton to love, yeah. All right, so we kind of can't. We're not going to stretch it, so we're going to remove Tillman, and we're going to remove Amon-Ra.
Okay.
And we're going to replace Devin Singletary with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay, got it.
Now we got just under 5,100 for wide receivers. So we'll keep Cedric Tillman back in. We have 5,400. And we'll go Cortland Sutton at 5,400 against the pass funnel Ravens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
I like
we'll
that.
Go.
Speaking of the Broncos, Bo Nix had a good game on Sunday, but just he spread the ball around a lot. But Sutton was one guy who did get, in a game where they got 11 targets. So it's certainly encouraging. But, Sutton the week prior, I think had 0 targets. So hopefully they get him he gets more consistent looks. But the 11 targets was definitely good. And again, pass funnel matchup, you figured Denver's going to be needing to throw in that game because Baltimore's likely going to put up points.
Yeah, so we're going to make another slight pivot here. We're going to remove the Chargers defense and put in Lad McConkey, and then go down to the Titans D.
There it is. Dude, nice. I like it. On the fly, adjusting, pivoting multiple times.
Yeah, this is a more fragile build, which we did that because it's the Millie. Like this wouldn't be a spy build. And I can drop my spy roster from this last week so we can kind of compare.
Okay, I'm going to add it to the stage. Okay, so yeah, here's your lineup from week 8. That's kind of like not the best picture, but we'll make it work. So you can see, comparing the lineup we just built to, and for the listeners on the podcast, let me just quickly tell them like what you got here. So you got Jameis, DeAndre Swift, Devon Achane, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Cedric Tillman, David Njoku, Cade Otton, and the Broncos defense.
Yeah, so there's 3 big bets on this roster. One is the Cleveland passing game. We got the Jameis double with Cedric Tillman and David Njoku. Bet number 2 is the Philadelphia Eagles and Cincinnati Bengals turning into something you couldn't win without. So getting their 2 primary pass catchers. And the big bet number 3 is Devon Achane as direct leverage off of the chalky Tyreek Hill. That's what we're kind of trying to do in a single entry roster is we're trying to make as few bets as possible that need to go right in order for us to win. So had Jamar Chase and AJ Brown had that game environment turned into something better, had the Bengals had better success, had the Eagles been forced to throw more, this probably would have shipped. So we got 2 out of the 3 things that we needed on this roster to go right. And still, without getting one of those things fully right, we were still in position to ship. So that's kind of what we're looking to do in single entry. We're trying to minimize the things that need to go right in order for us to win without sacrificing upside. In the Millie Maker, as we go back to, this roster, it's a little bit less focused because we have to be closer to optimal on the week in order to win that contest. It's a larger field size. We can expect there to be, it's not a single entry, it's a MME contest. So that means that the score needed to ship is going to be closer to the optimal roster on that week. So that's why it's a little bit less focused of a roster, and just comparing to how we build for different contests, I think was an important discussion here.
Absolutely, dude. Yes. And again, just the lineup that we landed on for those of you listening on the podcast, it's the Packers stack with Jordan Love, Jayden Reed, and Tucker Kraft, the bring back of Jahmyr Gibbs, and then Chase Brown in the other running back spot, Cedric Tillman, Cortland Sutton, Lad McConkey, and the Titans D to close it out. Yeah, Hilow, as always, man, great stuff. Any final thoughts?
No, man, we're beyond our time frame, but yeah, I would just say, well, I guess I do. Sorry. The score needed to ship this week is probably going to be another 205 to 210-ish point week. We talked about that leading into last week, where I was like, hey, this isn't the 180-point shipping week. We said that the target was around 205 to 210, and that's right where the score ended up being, where you needed to ship. So that is our target for this week. So it's a little bit different feel than like before last week, the previous like 4 weeks of play.
Absolutely love it, man. Guys, thanks for tuning into the DFS Lab. Hilow, again, thanks for your time, and we will catch you next time. Hilow, we'll see you.